Jax's revenge domain.
Where'd you get that? A gas station? Looks like something my grandpa wore to mow the lawn. That was Nolan Mercer, 26 years old. Strategic Development Lead, which is a title that means nothing except that his father runs the department and needed somewhere to put him. He said it loud enough for the whole room to hear, grinning like he'd just landed a punch and was waiting for the crowd to react. 12 people around that conference table. All of them suddenly very busy with their coffee cups. My name is Roy Holt. I'm 53 years old. I've worked in site operations and construction management for most of my adult life, different companies, different projects, always the same kind of work. The kind where you show up before the sun does and you know which decisions will come back to bite somebody in 6 months even if nobody's listening to you right now. I looked down at the watch, Belova, 1987. The crystal was scratched so bad you had to tilt it toward the light just to read the time. The leather strap had been replaced twice. The face had a hairline crack running from 9 o'clock down past 6. From the day my father dropped it in a parking lot in Cincinnati and didn't notice until we were already an hour down the highway. He never got the crystal replaced, said it still kept time. I turned the crown once, slow. Then I set my hand flat on the table and looked at the projector screen like Nolan hadn't said a word. Perry Mercer, VP of Operations, 57 years old. Nolan's father sat at the head of the table and let out a short chuckle, not a big laugh. Just enough to tell his son the shot landed clean. All right, Perry said, clicking his remote. Let's get into the Q3 numbers, and just like that, the meeting moved on. I wrote down what I needed, didn't look at Nolan again. But here's what Nolan didn't know. Here's what nobody in that room knew. My father's name was Floyd Holt. He started in construction at 19. Laying drainage pipe in southeastern Ohio, working summers and saving everything. By the time he was in his mid-40s, he was managing multiple project sites and had quietly built one of the more substantial private infrastructure financing operations in the Midwest. No press releases, no website. The man's name never appeared in a trade publication. That was by design. In 1998, this company, the one I've been working at for 7 years now, the one Perry Mercer runs his little empire inside of, was approximately 6 weeks away from losing a $40 million federal infrastructure contract. The kind of loss that doesn't just set you back, it finishes you. Clint Brandt, the founder, went to my father privately, hat in hand. My father bailed them out through a holding entity with no name on the door, no press conference, no credit. Just capital moved quietly from one account to another. But there was a contract. One clause written in plain language at the bottom of page 3. Silent subcontract equity stake, non-dilutable binding to any successor entity, enforceable by lineal heir upon presentation of identifying artifact to a founding era witness. The identifying artifact was the watch. The founding era witness was Walter Crane, a 69-year-old infrastructure investor who'd been in the room when my father signed the papers and who happened to be scheduled to walk through our front doors at 3 p.m. That same Monday, I'd known about the contract for 4 years. My father disappeared in 2004, not dramatically, not overnight, but deliberately the way a man steps back from a table when he's decided the game is finished. He left a letter with his attorney, sealed, to be opened only after a second letter arrived confirming he wasn't coming back. That second letter came in 2019. I drove to the attorney's office in Columbus on a Tuesday morning and sat in a parking chair and read 3 pages in my father's handwriting. The last paragraph told me where the safety deposit box was, told me what was in it, told me that Walter Crane would recognize the watch, and that when he did, everything else would follow. My father also wrote this: don't go in swinging, go in quiet. See if they remember where they came from. Give them time to show you who they are. So I did. I spent 2 years working at a mid-size contractor in Indiana before I applied here. Came in entry level, moved up to site coordination, then to operations manager for the commercial division. Nothing flashy. I showed up early, stayed late when it mattered, and kept my head down in a way that made people assume I had nothing interesting going on. In 7 years, I watched this place carefully. I watched who got promoted and why. I watched which numbers got questioned and which ones got waved through. I watched Perry Mercer build a small kingdom inside someone else's company. And I watched his son arrive fresh out of a graduate program and immediately start talking over people who'd been solving real problems since before Nolan was in high school. I watched all of it, and I turned the crown on that watch every single morning before I walked through the door. the same way my father taught me, not for luck, just to remember why I was there. Monday, 8:15 a.m., Nolan made his joke. Perry chuckled. Walter Crane was due in 6 hours and 45 minutes. I let it sit. I always let it sit. The rest of that Monday moved the way most Mondays do in a place like this. Meetings that could have been emails, a budget review that turned into a blame session. Nolan presenting a slide deck about leveraging legacy client relationships through dynamic engagement frameworks, which as far as I could tell, meant calling old clients and asking if they wanted to spend more money, except wrapped in enough business school language to make it sound like a breakthrough. I sat in my usual spot, second row from the wall, clipboard on my knee. I wrote down what was relevant and tuned out the rest. After the meeting, I walked back to my desk on the operations floor. Fourth row from the window, near the corner plant that hadn't been watered since someone's going-away party 3 months ago. I pulled up the pipeline reports I'd been working through and started flagging discrepancies. There were more than usual. There always were, lately. Gus. Whitfield stopped by around 10. Gus is 61, been with the company 19 years, does facilities coordination. He set a coffee on the edge of my desk without saying anything and went back to his own chair. That's the kind of man Gus is. He saw what happened in the meeting room. Didn't say a word about it, just brought coffee. That's the thing about guys who've been working their whole lives. They don't make speeches. They just show up. I found the $87,000 discrepancy around noon. It was buried in a global transfer account that hadn't been formally reviewed in almost 2 years. The billing codes didn't match the project numbers. The vendor name on the receiving end existed, but when I cross-referenced the license number, it pulled up an LLC registered in Delaware with no physical address and no operational history. I fragged it, wrote it up clean, and sent it up the chain with a note that said, "Discrepancy identified, recommend immediate review." Perry's name was on the original approval. I didn't make anything of that in the email. Just facts, just numbers. That's all it needed to be. Around 1 p.m., I noticed the energy on the floor start to shift. Nothing dramatic, just the small things you pick up when you've been paying attention long enough. A couple of the mid-level managers walking past my desk twice in 20 minutes for no clear reason. The way conversation dropped half a volume when I was nearby. Somebody had already started talking. Word travels fast in a building like this, when a client the size of Walter Crane is on the schedule. Everyone knew he was coming. Not everyone knew what it meant, but they felt the pressure the way you feel weather coming before you can see it. At 2:40, I grabbed a folder of billing reports from the executive floor printer, the only one on that side of the building that wasn't pulling documents sideways, and I was walking back down the corridor when the elevator opened. Crane came through the lobby the way men with real money tend to move. Not hurried, not performing, just present. Charcoal coat folded over his arm. A younger assistant 2 steps behind carrying a leather portfolio. The receptionist actually stood when she saw him. I'd worked there 7 years, and I'd never seen her stand for anyone. I kept walking, folder in one hand, coffee in the other, neutral expression. Just another shadow in the building, step 5, maybe 6. Crane stopped, not slowed down, stopped, dead still. His eyes went to my wrist. I didn't speed up. Didn't slow down. I let the distance close naturally. He said, "Where'd you get that watch?" His voice was low. The kind of low that comes from decades of boardrooms where the quietest person in the room was usually the one who owned it. I looked up. My father gave it to me. Crane's jaw shifted. Something moved behind his eyes, not surprise exactly, more like a calculation finishing itself. He looked from the watch to my face and back again. "What was your father's name?" "Floyd Holt," I said. "He built the Eastern Corridor." 2 seconds of silence. The assistant behind Crane had the good sense to look at the floor. Crane said, "Come with me." Not a question. He turned around and walked back toward the lobby conference room. I followed. He told his assistant to clear the room and reschedule the 3 p.m. briefing. Upstairs, Perry Mercer, who had been rehearsing his pitch in the glass reflection of the executive washroom since lunch, got the message through his secretary. I heard later that he went gray enough that someone asked if he needed to sit down. In the conference room, it was just me and Crane. He sat across from me and looked at the watch for a long moment without speaking. Outside the glass wall, I could see the assistant fielding 3 phone calls at once. Crane finally said, "Your father saved this company in 1998. I was in the room. I saw the papers, saw him sign." He shook his head slowly. The board called it the ghost ledger because they buried it so fast they didn't want anyone asking where the capital came from. I know, I said. How long have you been here? 7 years. He leaned back. Studied me the way you study a structure you're not sure is going to hold. He told me someone would come. Said if they ever saw that watch, the firm would already be running a test on whoever was wearing it. A pause. Sounds like you passed. Jury's still out, I said. That got a short sound from him. Not quite a laugh, but close. He reached into his jacket and set a small card on the table. No logo. Just a handwritten address in Columbus. There's a safety deposit box. I'm guessing you already know about it. I do. Then you know what to do with what's inside. He stood, buttoned his coat. I'm going to serve notice of full withdrawal today. $180 million. Redirected. Not because of you, because of them. 3 years I've been watching this place drift. He picked up his coat from the back of the chair. I want you to know before it hits the wire so you're not caught off guard. He walked to the door, paused with his hand on the frame. Your father, he said, without turning around, was the only man I ever watched restructure a failing operation without once raising his voice. Then he left. The whole conversation was 14 minutes. I sat there for another 30 seconds. Then I picked up my folder and walked back to my desk like nothing happened. By 4:45 p.m., the CFO's assistant was standing up at her desk, which she never does. By 5 p.m., the whole floor knew something had broken. They just didn't know what. I watered the corner plant on my way out. It was long overdue. Tuesday morning the building felt different. Not loud different, quiet different. The kind of quiet that happens when people know something shifted but haven't figured out what to call it yet. I got in at 7:10, made my coffee, sat down, pulled up my reports. By 8:30 the rumors had already started moving. I could track them the same way you track a crack in a foundation wall. You don't see it spreading in real time, but every hour you check, it's gone a little further. Someone in accounting had heard the Crane withdrawal notice came through at close of business. Someone else had heard it was tied to a compliance issue. A third version had it that Crane walked out of a meeting mid-sentence and nobody knew why. That last one was almost true. I flagged 2 more billing irregularities before lunch. Smaller than the $87,000 from Monday, but same pattern, same vendor LLC, same approval signature. I documented everything the same way, clean, factual, no editorializing, and sent it up the chain. Perry found me at my desk at 11:40. He came in fast, the way men do when they've been sitting with something long enough that movement feels like control. He stood in front of my desk with his arms crossed and his collar already damp and told me I had been making unauthorized contacts, accessing files outside my clearance level, and that effective, immediately my badge access was being suspended, pending a formal compliance review. I let him finish. I flagged an $87,000 billing discrepancy Monday. I said, you signed off on the original transfer. That's not what this is about. Then what's it about, Perry? He didn't have the next line ready. You could see him searching for it. He pointed toward HR down the hall, like they were backup he'd already called. We're going to handle this formally, today. Okay, I said, and I didn't move. That seemed to throw him more than an argument would have. He stood there another few seconds, then turned and walked back toward his office. Gus Whitfield was at the filing cabinet 6 feet away. He didn't look up. But after Perry turned the corner, Gus said quietly, without facing me, "Man sweating through a dry, clean-only shirt. That's always a good sign." I didn't say anything, but I noted it. 30 minutes later, the knock came on the glass. 3 sharp raps. Everyone on the floor looked up. Standing outside the operations room were Wade Pruitt from Internal Compliance, Wanda Carr from Legal, 2 board members I'd seen maybe a handful of times in 7 years, and behind them, Loretta Vega, chairwoman of the board. Silver-haired, 60 years old, the kind of woman whose stillness makes a room pay attention. She wasn't angry. She didn't need to be. She had the look of someone who had already decided how the next hour was going to go. Between them, she was holding an envelope, thick ivory paper, red wax seal, an embossed mark I recognized from the photocopies in my father's ledger. Wade opened the door. "Mr. Mercer, we need a moment." Perry came out of his office already talking. "I'm in the middle of a personnel situation. You're in the middle of a formal breach," Loretta said. Not loud, just final. "That's what we need to discuss." She broke the seal herself, right there in the doorway. Laid 4 pages on the nearest flat surface, the edge of someone's standing desk. The paper was aged but clean, typed original. 6 signatures on the final page. The last one in handwriting I'd known since I was a boy. She didn't read it word for word. She summarized it the way you summarize something to people who need to understand it fast. The short version: in 1998, Floyd Holt provided bridge financing that kept this company alive. In exchange, a silent equity clause was written into a subcontract agreement. The clause designated Floyd Holt and his lineal heirs as permanent stakeholders. Any attempt to terminate, demote, or obstruct that heir, once identified by a founding-era witness, automatically triggered the clause and voided any executive action taken against them. Walter Crane's signed confirmation had arrived by email at 9:02 that morning. Perry's face went through about 4 different expressions in 2 seconds. He landed on something between confusion and the early stages of understanding that this was not going to go his way. Who authorized her? Who authorized him to even be in this building without disclosure? His voice had gone up half a register. Loretta looked at him steadily. You did. The day you decided entitlement was a substitute for merit and called it leadership development. She didn't raise her voice once. Nolan had drifted in from the far end of the floor. He was standing near the copier with his arms at his sides, watching. He had the look of someone who has spent his whole life being told there's always a door marked exit, and was just now starting to suspect that wasn't true. Loretta turned to me. Would you like to address this formally? Not yet, I said. She nodded like that was the answer she expected. She gathered the papers, handed them to Wanda Carr, and told Wade Pruitt to begin a full compliance audit of all transfers approved under Perry Mercer's signature, going back 36 months. Perry started to say something. Wade put a hand up, not aggressive, just definitive, and said, Mr. Mercer, I'd recommend you stop talking and call your attorney. Perry looked at me one more time. His mouth opened, closed, then he walked back into his office and shut the door. The floor was dead silent for a moment. Then someone's keyboard started clicking. Then another. Slowly the room came back to life around the edges, the way it does when something big has happened and people are processing it by pretending to work. Gus walked past my desk on his way to the water cooler. He didn't stop, didn't look at me, just set a hand briefly on the back of my chair as he went by. That was enough. Clint Brandt's office hadn't changed in decades. Same mahogany walls. Same brass lamp with the crooked shade that nobody had ever gotten around to fixing. A framed photo on the wall behind his desk, 5 men in their early 30s, standing in front of a half-finished overpass somewhere in central Ohio, hard hats pushed back on their heads, squinting into the sun. Full of hunger. Back when the company was 3 trucks and a contract they'd barely won. My father was third from the left. He looked younger than I am now. Brandt was 71. Still came in every day, still had his name on the building, though the board had spent the last decade doing their best to turn him into a figurehead. He sat behind his desk with his hands folded over the leather blotter and looked at me the way you look at something you thought was gone for good. Floyd Holt, he said. Just the name, like he was testing whether it still had weight. Yes, I said. He was quiet for a moment. You look like him, same way of standing. Same way of not filling up a room more than you need to. He tapped one finger on the desk, slow and even. I always wondered what happened after 2003. He bailed us out and then just stepped back. No calls, no follow-up, nothing. He was watching, I said. He wanted to see what you'd do with it. Brandt closed his eyes briefly. We buried the paperwork inside of a month. The board didn't want questions about where the capital came from. Didn't want the liability of a silent partner nobody could verify. So he stopped. Forgot, I said. He didn't argue with that. I came in 7 years ago under my mother's name, I said. Entry level, no introduction. I wanted to see the place the way my father saw it, from the floor up. I wanted to know if it was worth what he put into it. Brandt looked at the photo on the wall. And the bones are good, I said. The structure is still there. But you let the wrong people build on top of it and nobody checked the load. He picked up a letter from the corner of his desk and held it out. This came in this morning. Crane's formal withdrawal notice, $180 million, redirected to a competitor fund. He set it down. Compliance found 9 separate billing irregularities under Perry's signature going back 26 months. Half of them run through the same shell LLC. I know, I said. I flagged the first one Monday. He looked at me for a long moment. Then he picked up his phone and told his assistant to get Perry Mercer in the office and to have security standing by. Perry came in already talking. He'd had an hour to compose himself and had apparently decided that offense was the way through this. He got about 10 seconds in before Brant raised one hand. "You're done, Perry, today. Clean out your office. Security will walk you out." Perry stopped like he'd walked into a wall. "You can't. I've been here 22 years. I built the operations division from." "You built a paper kingdom," Brant said, "and you put your son on the payroll to help you run it. That's not legacy. That's liability." Perry turned to me, eyes wide and wet at the edges. "You did this. You came in here and you—" "No," I said, "you did this. You did it the minute you laughed." He stared at me. The security guard appeared in the doorway. Perry looked at him, looked back at me, then seemed to lose the thread of whatever he'd been about to say. He left without another word. No speeches. No last-minute arguments, just the sound of shoes on hardwood going down the hall. Nolan was waiting outside by the elevator. He'd apparently been told by someone, I never found out who, that his father was being escorted out, and he'd come up to do something about it. When he saw the security guard, the argument he'd prepared seemed to evaporate. He looked at me through the glass wall with an expression I hadn't seen on him before. Not arrogance, not performance, just a kid realizing that the floor his whole life was built on had always belonged to someone else. The guard walked them both to the lobby. I watched from the window until the doors closed. The next morning, Loretta Vega called me into the boardroom. Full board, all present. Someone had put out the decent coffee for once. Loretta sat at the head of the table, hands folded, and offered me a permanent seat on the board, full voting rights, strategic oversight. Whatever I needed to make it work. I looked around the table. These were the people who had let 22 years of Perry Mercer happen, who had smiled at the right dinners and signed off on the right reports and never once asked where the money in 1998 actually came from. Now they were sitting there looking at me like I was the answer to a problem they'd created. I reached into my bag and set the watch on the table. Not as a gesture. Not for drama. Just set it down. "I didn't come here to collect power," I said. "I came here because my father asked me to find out if this place deserved what he gave it." Loretta said, "And your conclusion?" I looked at Brant. He was staring at the watch with the expression of a man doing the math on a lot of years. "The company can survive," I said, "but not because of the people in this room. Because of the people 2 floors down who showed up every day and did the actual work and never got a seat at this table." Nobody said anything to that. "Take care of them," I said. "That's the only ask." I stood up. Loretta started to speak. I shook my head, picked up the watch, and put it back on my wrist. Brant said, "You're just going to leave." "My father didn't build the Eastern Corridor so I could sit in his chair," I said. "He built it to see if you'd remember who actually laid the foundation." I looked at the photo they'd brought up from his office and hung on the boardroom wall, probably this morning, probably hoping it would help. My father, third from the left, half smiling like he already knew how the story ended. "You failed that test," I said. "Don't fail the next one." Then I walked out. Downstairs, the phones were going. The CFO's assistant was standing at her desk, talking fast into her headset. Someone near the window said something about accounts, about reallocations, about calls coming in from 3 different directions at once. Gus Whitfield was at the coffee machine. He looked up when I came through, gave me a single nod, the kind that doesn't need any words attached to it. I nodded back. I had a 2-hour drive to Columbus ahead of me, a safety deposit box to formally close out, and a watch that had needed a new crystal for going on 21 years. My father always said it still kept time. He was right about that. He was right about most things. But I figured we'd both earned a little maintenance by now. My father spent 30 years building things that had his name on none of them. I spent 7 years learning why that was enough. Some men build monuments. The good ones build foundations and let somebody else take the credit until the day they don't.